Committee next Wednesday. That's after President Trump's former fixer answered questions for more than 7 hours today out of the public eye. And there's more. The chairman of the House Intel announcing a public hearing on March 14th with Felix Sater. He's a Russian-born former business associate of Donald Trump who worked on the Trump Tower Moscow project with Michael Cohen. That is, President Trump incredibly sided with a dictator yet again, this time saying he doesn't hold North Korean leader Kim Jong-un responsible for Otto Warmbier's death after Kim denied knowledge of the American student's mistreatment.
He felt badly about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly about it. He tells me that he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word.
We'll talk about that in the hour ahead. I want to bring in now Shimon Prokopez, Matthew Rosenberg, Laura Cohen. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Matthew, first let me ask you about the New York Times. The New York Times is reporting that the president ordered Chief of Staff John Kelly to grant a security clearance to his son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner. You contributed to the story, and it looks like the president overruled the recommendations of his own intelligence agency.
So look, we've known for a while that Kushner had problems. I mean, this is a guy, when he filed his initial security clearance form in like January 2017, he didn't put any foreign contacts on it. And what we learned is that, over the last 2 years, the FBI, the CIA, and others had raised concerns over Kushner's contacts with a number of foreign businessmen who were tied into kind of foreign governments, and just questions about his discretion, his ability to keep secrets, and, a level of kind of entanglement with foreign concerns that would probably keep any American from getting a security clearance. At some point last year, the president said, well, he's got to have it. And at least John Kelly, the former chief of staff, believed that he was ordered by President Trump to make sure Jared got a clearance. And that Don McGahn also wrote a memo saying the same thing. So both McGahn and Kelly wrote their own memos kind of outlining their concerns. And Kelly saying he believed he was ordered to give Jared a clearance despite the concerns of the FBI, of the CIA, and the NSA.
So I apologize. Did you guys hear that sneeze? Did that make it on there? Sorry about that. I couldn't.
Bless you.
I was trying to tell them, I need to sneeze, cut my mic, but sorry about that. So listen, Shimon, Team Trump hasn't been very honest about this, have they?
No, they haven't been very honest. Neither has Team Trump, or neither have the people around Jared Kushner. Let's remind folks of when Jared Kushner when it was announced and his lawyers came out and they said, oh, he's getting his security clearance. They try to act as if they went through the normal channels, and this was given to Jared Kushner after an extensive background check, and then the FBI and the CIA all kind of signed off on this. And then obviously now we learned that that just wasn't the case. And then the other thing, let's remind folks, is when the president was asked about this by the New York Times, he denied back in January that he had any involvement in getting Jared Kushner his security clearance. Here's that sound.
There's been a story in the news in the last 2 weeks about your son-in-law's security clearance.
Yeah.
Did you tell General Kelly or anyone else in the White House to overrule security officials, the career?
No, I don't think I have the authority to do that. I'm not sure I did, but I wouldn't do it. Jared's a good. I was never involved with his security.
The president had no involvement pertaining to my clearance or my husband's clearance.
Right, and that was obviously Ivanka Trump, the daughter and the wife of Jared Kushner. What's really significant in all this, and I think Matt hit on this, is that basically what the president did here was that he circumvented the entire process, the intelligence community process, by doing something like this. And I can tell you, I spoke to someone tonight in the intelligence community about this, and so they're not very happy about this, for obvious reasons, because it just kind of goes around the institutions that are in place to try and deal with things like this. And if the president is sort of going to circumvent this process, then they feel that what is the point of even having this process? If the president is just going to decide, go ahead and do this, there's really no point in having this process. And that is what concerns them, is that this entire process, the president, which we see time and time again, has been circumvented.
Laura, listen, the president has the right to grant a security clearance, but why lie about it?
Well, that's the major question here. I mean, it really is the president's prerogative to either classify or even declassify whatever information he sees fit. And as we know, he kind of gave the role to his son-in-law as the secretary of everything. I mean, he's responsible for figuring out the Middle East peace crisis. He's somebody who would, if he had to fulfill that role, would need to be able to have access. So the president has the right to. So why would you lie about repeatedly things that you already had the power to do? And let's just hammer in for people the reason why there may have been concerns. We don't know all the reasons why there may have been security clearance concerns, but we do know that when you have somebody in the executive branch of government working so closely with the President of the United States in particular, you want them to engage in behavior to have international compromises. You don't want them to themselves be compromised. And if the nature of the concerns was because they thought that Jared Kushner could be manipulated, could be susceptible to bribery in some way, or in some way said, this is somebody you do not want to have top secret clearance, the president circumventing that is not just about nepotism or his prerogative, it's about dismissing genuine concerns by putting someone in a position to was once thought about Ivanka or Jared Kushner. So both had concerns and the president disregarded it.
You know, I think it's also worth explaining to folks, you know, how this process works, why it works. When you try and get a security clearance, they go into your finances. They go in to get everybody you know. They want to know about all your foreign contacts. I know that if you live in Washington, like a bunch of us do, you inevitably have neighbors who are getting security clearance renewals, and you've got people come to your house. I've sat down for any number of my neighbors and been asked, are they loyal Americans? Have you seen them use drugs? Do you have any reason to doubt, you know, their honesty? And, you know, I think that explains a lot of frustration for people inside the government who've gone through this process, and then they see somebody who it's never really been explained, why is he in the White House? What is his role? What is his expertise? And now he's got access to all these secrets. Like, you know, what is this? And he didn't have to go through any of this, or they just disregarded the concerns?
You know, the president was on, guess what, Fox News tonight, and I just want to play this for you guys. Watch.
I was kind of dragged in a little bit into the Michael Cohen issue. I interviewed him many times on radio and TV. He was never my attorney. He did apologize to me for his attorney saying that in court. But I can tell you personally, he said to me at least a dozen times that he made the decision on the payments and he didn't tell you. Yeah. He told me personally.
Well, he did, and he made the decision. And remember this, he's an attorney. Whatever decision he makes, he's supposed to rely on an attorney to make a decision. Somebody said, one of the very good Republican members today said that, you know, he's supposed to be an attorney. He's out there doing all sorts of things. When you have an attorney, you're supposed to be able to rely on your attorney.
Okay. Here's the problem with that. Cohen told the president that he was going to make the payments. There's a tape of it. Roll it.
I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David, you know, so that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with funding. Yes, and it's all the stuff, because, you know, you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be. Correct. So I'm all over that.
So Matthew, what are they talking about?
I mean, look, I'm not a lawyer. We'll leave that for Laura here. But it certainly sounds like they're talking about making payments to kind of keep quiet a story, the Stormy Daniels story. And it certainly sounds like the president's agreeing with him, has been fully briefed, and knows what's going on.
Laura, did he open himself up, Hannity, to potentially becoming a witness in front of Congress?
Oh, yeah, I would have written out the subpoena at that moment in time and said, oh, there was a conversation that you had with Michael Cohen, who's now a convicted felon, about transactions involving the president when the president of the United States was virtually named as an unindicted co-conspirator, and there's talk about him making installment payments while he's in office. This is wonderful. Thank you for volunteering the information, and now I have actually a soundbite to compare it to if you decide to change your story at some point in time now that you're under oath. Absolutely. And by the way, the president and Sean Hannity can't have their cake and eat it too, in particular the President of the United States. Was he your attorney? Was he your attorney, or was he not? You have varying statements from the President. Either he's my attorney, ask him when he's talking in the back of Air Force One about the payment, let alone all of them involving Stormy, Karen McDougal, David Pecker, National Enquirer, etc. And then it was conveniently, well, he's not my attorney. He's not my attorney at all, and if he was, I'd have to be able to rely on him. Just because the person is an attorney doesn't mean that he was your attorney for the purpose of the actual transactions, or that you are certainly inoculated and somehow immunized by that conversation simply because that person has a JD. Was he your attorney or was he not? According to the SDNY, according to the Mueller team talking about him as a cooperator, the privilege is poof, gone, and the president is responsible for that.
And also, if I can just add, Don,
quickly, because I got to run.
According to the SDNY, despite what Sean Hannity is saying, Michael Cohen was his attorney. I was in court when that was announced.
Yeah.
And the way it was announced, they did not want to announce it, and the judge forced Michael Cohen to tell her that Sean Hannity was a client.
And the people on that channel will never know. Alternative facts and alternative universe. Thank you all. I appreciate it. The president did it again today. He accepted the word of a dictator, this time Kim Jong-un. Why does he keep siding with dictators? North Korean leader Kim Jong-un didn't know about the torture of American student Otto Warmbier.
He felt badly about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly. He knew the case very well, but he knew it later. And, you know, you got a lot of people, a big country, a lot of people. And in those prisons and those camps, you have a lot of people. And some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you?
But he tells me that he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word.
Fareed is here. Fareed Zakaria is here, host of Fareed Zakaria GPS right here on CNN. He's taking Kim at his word. That is astounding, isn't it? He's taking Kim at his word.
It's a breathtaking statement. The whole thing is breathtaking. I mean, here you have the dictator of a country that is arguably the most repressive country in the world. Donald Trump accurately points out there are lots of people, by lots we mean tens if not hundreds of thousands of people in prison camps that make up like an almost a mini country, an archipelago of prison camps in North Korea. So yes, there are a lot of people, but it is a absolute dictatorship with a highly repressive police state. The idea that an American would be taken prisoner and tortured without the knowledge of the leader is inconceivable. And why would you take his word for it? That's part of the bizarre aspect here. Donald Trump says he takes Putin's word that he didn't interfere.
Don't forget bin Salman, Mohammed bin Salman.
Mohammed bin Salman that he didn't. Right? What is it about this that? Forget about just American intelligence. It's common sense. You have the dictator of one of the most repressive countries in the world, and you take his word that he didn't know about a very prominent case of torturing an American to death.
Does he envy the power that they have? They can just run roughshod over all of these dictators. Does he envy their wealth? Does he feel like he's like them?
I think it's the power. Trump at the root of Trump is narcissism, and I think to watch these people who are the cult of personality, the control, the power. You notice he's almost never said something like, Angela Merkel tells me that she thought that it was a good idea to take these refugees in, and I take her for her word. The benefit of the doubt is somehow only provided to these dictators. There are very few leaders of democracies that he extends that courtesy. So it's a very bizarre thing, and it's also breathtakingly naive for a guy who says he's a tough guy, he's a shrewd guy, he understands the world. If you understand the world, you would understand you don't extend the benefit of the doubt on communist propaganda to the leader of the North Korean Communist Party.
Let's talk about the summit. He walked away with no deal. What happened?
There I actually think, frankly, he did the right thing in walking away with no deal. Why did we get there? My guess is Donald Trump invested way too much in the idea of his personal relationship with Kim. He signaled that he wanted a deal very badly. They scheduled a signing ceremony and a press conference before the deal began, before the negotiations began. So Kim probably thought he could ask for a lot. And he asked for the relaxation or the suspension or the elimination of all American sanctions Well, he wasn't going to do that much. He was not going to do complete denuclearization. Now, at that point, Trump, to his credit, probably influenced a lot by Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, who are two serious adults in the room, walked away. I don't think we would have gotten to this point if there hadn't been this crazy expectations that were raised, with Trump signaling for months that he thought there was going to be a breakthrough. He thought, because Kim, the thing to remember is Kim is watching all that same TV. Kim's watching CNN just as Trump is.
So he set himself up.
I think he set himself up, for Kim made a much bigger ask than he would have done if he had gone in with much lower expectations and said, as every president does with every one of these kind of negotiations, you would have gotten a reasonable process which would have taken much longer. But Trump wanted, some kind of dramatic, quick win. But as I say, at the end of the day, he did the right thing in walking.
Art of the deal?
Well, the odd thing about the art of the deal is one of these days Donald Trump should read the art of the deal, because there's actually some good stuff in there. I don't think he clearly didn't write it, but and he says time and time again, don't set yourself up. Don't want the deal too much. Don't if you signal that you want the deal too much, the other side will ask to. Yeah. He just needs to read
his own book. Read his own book, with a book with his name on it at least. Can you quickly tell us, and I don't want to give it short shrift though, you have a special in Saudi Arabia coming out?
Well, it just feels like we're at this bizarre moment with Saudi Arabia where the Trump administration has invested so much in this one guy, Mohammed bin Salman, and in this one country. And what we thought we'd do is just take people back and make them understand, why do we have this crazy relationship with Saudi Arabia in the first place? The United States is the most open democracy in the world. Saudi Arabia, by some standards, is one of the most closed societies in the world. What got us together? It's a 75-year-old alliance. What are the insights? So a lot of it is just, we call it the kingdom of secrets, because there are so many secrets, but there are so many paradoxes here. The most open society with the most closed society. The Saudis have been our closest ally in some areas, but they've spawned some of our deadliest enemies, like Osama bin Laden. So I hope what people will get is like an uncovering, we'll pull back the curtain on all those secrets.
And we'll be watching. Fareed, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And don't miss Fareed on the CNN special report, Saudi Arabia, Kingdom of Secrets. It's Sunday night at 8. Thanks again to Fareed Zakaria. Michael Cohen's testimony is hardly the end. There could be a whole lot more to come. We're going to tell you who might be next right after this. It's testifying before Congress. Here's what he said about people who were mentioned in Michael Cohen's testimony.
If there were names that were mentioned, or records that were mentioned during the hearing, we'll figure out who we want to talk to, and we'll bring them in.
So would it be fair then to say, if any names came up multiple times in that hearing,
they have a good chance of hearing from us?
Well, that list includes the president's children and some of his top business aides. So joining me now is Glenn Donat and Juliet Kayyem, also Garrett Graff, the author of The Threat Matrix Inside Robert Mueller's FBI and the War on Global Terror. Hello, one and all, and welcome. Garrett, I'm going to start with you. You just heard Chairman Cummings. You heard him say that if a name came up in Cohen's testimony, they'll probably be reaching out to them. This is one name that came up over and over again. Watch this.
Weisselberg is executive one, correct?
Yes. The bottom signature, I believe, is Alan Weisselberg's. I was asked again with Alan Weisselberg. I was instructed by Alan. In the office with me was Alan Weisselberg. Mr. Weisselberg, for sure. Alan Weisselberg, Alan Weisselberg, Alan Weisselberg, Alan Weisselberg.
who would know the answer to those questions?
Alan Weisselberg.
So listen, Cohen actually mentioned the Trump Organization chief financial officer more than 20 times. He seems like, purposely, right? Do you think he was laying the groundwork for a committee to call Weisselberg?
Well, we've sort of known for a while that Alan Weisselberg is likely one of the key players in this. This is someone who was cooperating with federal prosecutors, has immunity in the campaign finance probe that Michael Cohen has already pleaded guilty to. A probe, mind you, that the Southern District in New York is continuing, so they have other investigative targets in mind, likely in that case. And then also, remember, this is the Trump Organization. This is not a super large company. This is a small family business with a small number of senior level executives, and most of them are named Trump. One of the few who is in a position to know everything that was going on in that company who's not named Trump is Michael Cohen, and one of the few others is Alan Weisselberg. So if you're going to try to figure out how to decode what was actually going on inside the Trump Organization, you're obviously going to be turning to the accountant, particularly after Michael Cohen laid out in such great detail yesterday that, you know, we hear a lot about criminal organizations keeping two sets of books, sort of your real books and your fake books. The Trump Organization might be the first criminal organization in history to be keeping three sets of books. You've got your fake books for the tax folks, you've got your real books, and then you've got your other set of fake books that you gussy up for Forbes and other organizations to try to inflate the idea that Donald Trump is a successful billionaire.
That's a lot of juggling, Glenn. I mean, Cohen suggested yesterday that Trump committed a variety of financial crimes, including bank fraud, tax fraud. What does that mean for Weisselberg? I mean, after all, we're told that he knows where all the financial bodies are buried.
Well, good to be with you tonight, Don, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
It can mean, it's hard to know. I mean, we heard that he had an immunity deal, and we've heard more recently that it may be a more limited immunity deal, maybe just, proffer immunity, queen for a day immunity, which only protects his words from being used against him in the Southern District. So were Congress to reach out to him, I would imagine any competent lawyer would have to strike a separate immunity deal for Congress. It would be crazy for him to go in and talk without protection before Congress, because he, to your point, Don, would have a lot of exposure. Cohen revealed a smorgasbord of potential crimes. As you said, bank fraud, tax fraud, charity fraud, auction fraud, fraud sort of sublime and ridiculous. And as Garrett said, that Weisselberg would have been right in the middle of it. So, yes, he has a lot to be concerned about.
Julie, I want to bring you in. So how then would investigators on the ground get to the bottom of potential financial crimes like this?
Well, Michael Cohen helped them yesterday. I think one of the overlooked aspects of the testimony was of the 3 of the 4 documents that he produced. You know, he says, I did not see collusion. That's a Mueller issue. One of them is about Trump fighting about the grades, whether the grades would be released. The other 3 are right in the bullseye of the Southern District of New York, and I have to believe that that's purposeful. They involve Deutsche Bank, they involve the payments to Stormy Daniels, and they involve I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget, the auction of the portrait of himself, which relates to the Trump Family Foundation. Those are the 3 Achilles heels for Donald Trump. So Michael Cohen started the House down that pathway. We've got to believe that the Southern District already has those 3 key pieces. And as I often say, like, the national security implications of this are real. This is not just about the Trump Organization. These falsities made the Trump family vulnerable. Now, whether it was coercion, collusion, or just a desire to hide this entire network that, as Gareth said, is based on 3 different books, who knows? But that kind of falsehood is why people who have companies like that don't get security clearance. They're vulnerable.
I want to play what former
Don,
New
if
Jersey
I can
Governor...
pick up on that for a second.
Yeah, but let me play this, please, because I want to get this in. Yeah. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie just said to my colleague Chris Cuomo, watch this.
The folks at the Southern District, only they know what they know. What they're doing, I'm confident, is building a case for 2 things. 1, to go after those around the president who may have committed crimes. And 2, to build a case, if they have one, I don't think they have one at the moment, but if they were trying, they're trying to build one against the president for when he leaves office.
Garrett, is he right?
It certainly seems possible. It also seems possible that they are building a case and hoping to move forward while the president is still in office. You know, they could put forward a conspiracy indictment that includes the president as an unindicted co-conspirator for political reasons. One of the things that I think really comes true, really came clear out of Michael Cohen's testimony yesterday is that this is looking more and more like a racketeering prosecution and a racketeering investigation, a RICO case. that, you know, you have an overlapping group of players, you have an overlapping group of criminal conspiracies, you have an overlapping set of crimes, that this is not sort of individual instances. This is an organization that was involved in corrupt practices from top to bottom on a wide variety of fronts. And frankly, there is no office in the country that is better at a RICO racketeering prosecution than the Southern District of New York, which effectively invented it under, wait for it, U.S. Attorney Rudy Giuliani.
Interesting. You think, Glenn, you think they're more powerful? I only have about 10 seconds left. You think that SDNY is not as powerful as the special counsel?
Well, I think in investigating the president, they have more limitations. They have less sort of jurisdictional limits than the special counsel has, but it's much more awkward for them or difficult for them to get their story out. They don't have a direct channel to Congress. They can only speak through indictments, as Garrett was saying, and so if they can't indict the president, and that's pending or sitting DOJ policy, then it's very hard how they can get sort of a report to Congress or sort of the unindicted material they've assembled against Trump outside.
That's got to be the last word. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Investigations into Russian interference are expanding on Capitol Hill. The House Judiciary member, Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee, tells me what to expect next. Testified before Congress for 3 days in a row, but lawmakers think there's more to learn from him.
I'm committed to telling the truth, and I will be back on March 6th to finish up. There's more to discuss.
Joining me now is Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. Congresswoman, always a pleasure. I want to start with this breaking news that administration officials, including the White House, they're telling our Pamela Brown that they believe that the way the special counsel regulations are written will protect the president from any negative information being released if he's not charged with a crime. Give me your reaction to that.
Well, clearly, I stand on the side of ensuring that the American people have all the facts that they need to know what their president did, when, and why. The special counsel report is one that the American people are expecting to see. And there are many of us in the United States Congress that will join either in a lawsuit or demanding that the Justice Department release the document. If there are confidential or classified matters, redact those, but to present them to the American people. We will not stand idly by and not allow the special counsel's report, in the context that it can be presented, to be seen, heard, and studied by the American people and the members of the United States Congress. Plain and simple. We will simply sue the Justice Department and the administration to have that document released.
Let's talk about Michael Cohen now. He's coming back for his fourth day of testimony before Congress in just over a week. And we are told that investigators are expanding. Where do you think all of this is heading?
Well, you know, Don, what was shocking to me is that a man who spent a good part of a decade with the President of the United States, calling him a cheat, a con man, and a racist. In addition, providing real documentation of evidence of bad behavior. The check that came during the actual presidency of Donald Trump, $35,000, hush money reimbursement, well documented. I think looking closely at the testimony that was given by Mr. Cohen and information that is going to be gleaned from a whole series of hearings by the House Judiciary Committee, which I'm on, dealing with obstruction and emoluments, issues that are extremely important, are really going to provide a roadmap for what the next step should be regarding this presidency.
Yeah. So listen, I want to talk about the House Oversight Chair, Elijah Cummings. He says after Cohen's testimony, his committee now wants to interview close Trump associates and family members. Who do you think could be facing the most trouble?
Well, I certainly think that there are persons that have left the White House. I mean, I wouldn't leave out some of the persons that have been fired or left that would be relevant to call. I don't know whether